Hello, everybody, and welcome to Couch Conversations. We are so excited that you all have joined us on tonight, where we're really just wanting to have a real discussion with young adults who are prepared to take our church to the next level. My name is Carrington Murray, and I serve as the 70th Episcopal District YPD president, and I will actually be your host for tonight's show. However, I am not alone. I have three talented and great professionals with me who will all introduce themselves to you and tell you how brilliant that they are. So without further ado, I will actually hand it off, and whoever would like to go first can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Jamaisha Williams. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm also the young adult representative for the Connectional Lay organization. It's a lay thing. I work for a private nonprofit named Thornwell while building my own practice. Shout out to Magnolia Counseling and Consultation. So I'm excited about the great things that God has prepared me for and is working in my life.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Davis, and I am a rehabilitation counselor. I work at Georgia State University as the Academic Access Coordinator for the IDEAL program, which is an inclusive post-secondary education program for students with intellectual disabilities. I'm grateful for the role that I'm serving, and I look forward to learning all that I can so that I can bring it all back to our community and, serve God.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shatia Stevens, and I am a mental health counselor within a higher ed institution. Currently, I work on a mental health awareness grant where I serve as the mental health outreach coordinator on the SAMHSA. It's a SAMHSA grant. So, yeah, I'm just glad to be here.
Again, I told y'all they were great. I told y'all even before they introduced themselves, I told you they were great. So we are excited again to just be able to have real live discussion about some very important topics. So we all know Corona has not here wilding in these streets. So how's things been? Like, how have y'all been like coping during the pandemic? How has things been different for you in the pandemic? Like, just what's been going on?
Man. I feel like for my life, it's really important that I stay true to my self-care regimen. So that means doing things that bring me peace, that bring me some version of my normal. So if that's like listening to music in my car, totally by myself, Beyonce, anything that just brings you a zen, just doing that has kept me somewhat together.
I found that kind of unplugging from, sorry, Kara, news and social media, that has helped a lot because the news can be so depressing. I was actually reading through some articles this morning and my heart just started to race. And I was, oh my goodness. So I jumped into a mindfulness activity just so I can calm myself, control my breathing, and just get myself situated because every day we're learning something new and it's not always the most positive news. So unplugging from that kind of stuff has helped me a lot.
For myself, I would say continuing to have boundaries. So, when we would go out with friends or meet up with family members, we just go and we have fun, we enjoy ourselves. Now we can't really go out as freely, have that type of fun. So the phone has been quite used and it can become a lot. So I've remained being able to draw those boundaries. So that means for me, putting my phone on Do Not Disturb, still having my personal time and not being bombarded with everything that's going on in others' lives. So I would just say remaining true to my boundaries has been something that I'm definitely doing in quarantine, COVID-19.
Yeah, like honestly, everything that they've already said is kind of like a retweet for me. I know recently I'm big on Netflix, Hulu, and I've always watched it. But since the pandemic has come along, when life just gets overwhelming or there's just too much going on, I'm not ashamed to say there are some days that I get up, I get ready, and probably sit in my room all day and just watch television, watch Hulu, watch Netflix, because it really just allows me to unplug and not really have to worry about like who's texting me, what needs to be done, and just really taking that time for myself to be like, I'm going to take these 3 or 4 hours to do absolutely nothing, to not take in anything, not put out anything, and just literally exist until I can reset and I'm ready to kind of take on. And so I think like sometimes we have to really check ourselves, like even as like mental health counselors and rehabilitation counselors, that even us, like we're catering and working and serving and helping professions so much that we really have to remind ourselves like we're still human too, and to really just take time to really unwind as well. So I guess like just thinking about like church, and of course even that looks different, and work, like our work lives and our clients that we serve. Like how has that transition been for you? Like church, I guess we can start with work. How's the work transition been now that we've gone from in person working with our clients to now things being virtual?
So for us, we had to, with it being an inclusive post-secondary education program, our students are taking college classes, which means that everything that they have to do with their classes, they kind of bring to us. So everything has gone completely virtual. Zoom is my best friend. I pretty much know all the everything to do with it now because I'm on it all day, every day. So everything has either goes through email, you're texting, we're calling, or we're using Zoom. So that's what it looks like for clients. We have client meetings. We break down our schedule. We have career groups for our students. So we meet up with them on one Zoom. Then we have mental health counseling for our students on another Zoom. Then we also have just academic check-ins. So I serve as like a liaison between professors and students. So coordinating with the professors and then coordinating with the students and then making them all mesh, but on everyone's different schedules. So it can be a lot, but I will say that it's definitely teaching me how to be more flexible with certain things.
Anybody else got something you want to add?
No, I just echo everything that she said. Since I do work for a higher ed institution, we have went totally virtual as well. Most days I'm totally zoomed out. Like I'm sick of Zoom. I don't want to see no chalkboard, no nothing. And so it really has forced me to be able to prioritize important tasks because it's just coming your way at once. And so I have to really look at what's important. And sometimes that means putting me over other people. If that means, hey, I'm going to eat lunch instead of answering an email, things like that, I've really had to learn to do.
And personally, I worked from home before COVID. I have a home office and then I have a physical office at one of our church stations. So I would typically be between both. And so the transition from working into home, I was fine with that. And sometimes I feel like I'm really too introverted. So being in the house was okay for me to transition. But for a lot of my parents, especially and the clients I work with, they need that outlet. They need to socialize. That really helps them day to day. And some of my moms, they just needed a break from all of the children and needed an outlet. So going virtually, our company was able to transition. And so that's made working with them so much easier because we have our time where we can talk. The parent and I can work together independently, away from the children. And then I have my time with my kiddos. And so it's been good for me because I really missed working with them. Like everyone else, I'm zoomed out, but for the kiddos, it doesn't matter. We can do activities and they also just get that time to talk, because I feel like a lot of our children who seek counselors outside of the school system, they miss that opportunity with talking to their counselors just about certain things. Down here in South Carolina, where I live, everyone doesn't have internet capability. So a lot of the children are, left out because they don't have that. But my parents have been so resilient, and it's just been a testament to what we can overcome, when we really put our mind to it and put an effort.
Absolutely. And so I think you all touched on like a lot of things that we all have, like our professional life, but we all have like our church lives as well. And so I guess like flipping that question, how was the transition been from in-person church to now actually you know, tuning into your church service every Sunday, or, you know, getting on Zoom. You all talked about being zoomed out. That's how I feel about some of the church meetings and things like that. Everything is on Zoom. So how have you all been dealing with not being able to see your church members, not being able to see, like, you know, your, as Jamaisha, your church babies that you would normally see? Like, how's it been? How's it been?
So, when I go back, my church babies are going to be adults because, you know, kids grow so fast. But I've also just missed the fellowship of, you know, the connection. You know, I'm so glad and grateful for the AME Church being a connectional church where we can meet and engage with people, just not from our home districts, but from the 12th district, from the 13th, the 11th. I mean, the 20th, the 19th, you know, I miss my friends, especially in districts 14 through 20. So we were all looking forward to General Conference, you know, just so we can have that time to just fellowship and work on the business of the church. Of course, I miss going to the local church and seeing the mothers get all dressed up and, you know, and just fellowshipping. There was just such a joy, you know. Of course, there was drama, but there was always just a joy when you're in the midst of other believers and people who care about you. So, but thankfully, I still have some reserve for my Zoom meetings for my church family. My pastor, she actually broadcasts on Facebook Live, so that kind of gives me a break from the Zoom monotony. But just being able to communicate, I text with my friends from across the connection, so that's been helpful and kind of relieving some of that desire to be near them and hug them. But I can't wait to go to church. So I can see kids that we're going to have.
Yeah, that's kind of the same for me. I just miss like the worship experience. We all know sometimes or some weeks they're rough. And so we look forward to church on Sunday. And sometimes you just hear that one song that's like, that's it. That's what I need. Like, I needed to hear that. That's everything I need to take me into this new week. So, you know, I miss that. And, you know, all churches are doing what they can do. And I totally respect all these pastors because just as it's a change for us, like it's definitely a change for pastors. And so I just salute all of them for adapting to this change. But I just miss the worship experience and being there, feeling the love from people, just feeling God in a sanctuary. I just miss it. But I know that when we're able to go back, that first week is going to be epic. It's just going to be everything we ever imagined.
Well, it's kind of twofold for me. I appreciate the fact that our churches have been able to transition so smoothly and quickly to be able to accommodate our needs. But on the same side, sometimes I struggle after having a long work week virtually, and then I want to be able to unplug and find Zen and find peace. And then I have to do the same thing that I do for work, for church. So sometimes I am not necessarily in the mood to focus, and I feel some disconnection. So like it's twofold. I feel like it's really depending upon what mood I'm in. But yeah, it's twofold for me sometimes. I really miss being able to just have one-on-one and just unplug during worship.
No, that's real. Because honestly, I can put myself out there again. Like there are some times that I get easily distracted when I'm doing things, and so
right.
Like, you have your Facebook Live pulled up, and then all of a sudden you get a notification. Like you click off to check the notification, right. And then you end up being off doing other things for like 10 minutes, and you come back and the scripture and the prayer is already passed. And you know,
that's exactly what I do.
So yeah, I think you all you're really posing like a lot of stuff. Like, you know, even listening to what you all said, it's almost like it's getting us through. We're still, you know, getting the connection there, but it's a challenge, and it's just something that we aren't really used to. You know, like working is one thing, but church that's always been like in person, that we've had for years, and now it's changed and looks completely different. It just doesn't fully hit the absolute same. So I guess like with that in mind, as we as emerging adults and as young adults, why is it important that we have spaces like these to talk to other young adults to see how they're coping, how they're dealing, to develop programming during the pandemic and even look into what we can do afterwards? Why is that important for us to do?
Well, I really feel like that's important just because everybody deals with it in different ways. And so, like you said, some things may hit for some and not hit the same with others. So, to really be able to get a wide range of perspective is really going to show you how effective whatever method that you're trying to present when brainstorming, if that's like going virtual and having virtual services, just really seeing if things work or not when you have a difference in perspective and opinion. So, this type of open conversations is really important.
But it also shows that though this COVID has changed so much, that there are similarities in what we're experiencing and how we can continue to connect with one another. Because I'm learning from you all as we're talking and things that you've done to help you cope. I'm like, I may try that, because I've been here gardening and all kind of stuff. So, maybe I'll do something different. So it just gives us that opportunity to show that we're, despite we're us being isolated and so, just stuck at home, that we can do things together. We've come together here just to have this conversation. We're in different parts of the state or country. So, we can still connect. And I'm grateful for these conversations because we can help someone else who may not have thought of a coping skill, or to know that, hey, they're struggling too. I'm not by myself.
Yeah, I completely concur with both of them. I think these types of platforms and just where we are right now, it shows us the value of versatility and learning how multifaceted we can be and we can become. For some of us, we would have never thought that we would be using the amount of technology that we're using. Like, yes, our age group, we grew up outside and we grew up with the phones, but we didn't think that we would be using the technology or anything to the degree that we're using it now. So I think I'm grateful for the versatility it's teaching us and just how to be flexible and to deal with things. And I think, as Carrington mentioned, when we're taking that back to the church, we can use that as, I don't want to say leverage, but kind of like leverage, like, hey, it doesn't always have to be like this. Like, we can switch some things around. Worship doesn't always have to look the same every Sunday. There are some changes. We can be versatile. We've been versatile for, what is this, about 5 months now? We can be versatile as we go back. So I say versatility for sure.
Right. And I think you kind of really provided a great segue into kind of speaking to how to actually meet the needs of emerging adults and young adults. Like, we're in that weird space where we're like grown, but we're not grown, but we're not babies no more either. And so regardless of where we are in life and in different phases of our lives, like there are still certain needs that we want to be met or that we need to be met through like our worship and through like, our church experience that looks different from somebody who may be a little older than us and to individuals that may be younger than us. So does anybody kind of can you all kind of speak to just why it's important to just kind of check in with young adults and check in with emerging adults to see what needs that we have and why our needs are important to our churches?
Well, it's definitely important that we continue to check in because needs change. One day we may be in survival mode where we really need to have our basic needs met. But tomorrow I may need a spiritual need met because I feel like I'm in a tug of war or spiritual warfare. So it's good that we, again, connect virtually, use our text messaging, phone calls for those who don't mind, bending an ear for a little while, because needs change. And to serve the present age, how else are we going to know what our young adults are struggling with if we aren't connecting with them, if we aren't holding calls similar to this or surveys, just to make sure that the church is doing everything possible to ensure, like, spiritually, you're safe. COVID may be rampant, but here at, amechurch.com, you are safe. and conveying that message to our leaders, our older adults who are in positions of leadership, because a lot of times they are struggling with trying to figure out what we need, but they forget to just come and to have a little talk with us, and they'll send one, they're like, yes, Lord, I'll go. And then one is like sacrificial lamb of the young adult voice. I don't mind. That's what I do. But yeah, because again, the church is evolving. In this time of COVID, we've seen young adults have to step up and really emerge as leaders to really put a lot of virtual programming together to keep our churches and our denomination moving forward. So that right there in itself speaks a magnitude of why young adults and young people are so important for the lifeblood of the church, and that they have to nurture these relationships, because we have so many talented young people, young adults who can do more than sometimes we are allowed because of these boxes and how we've been compartmentalized. But I mean, honestly, COVID-19 has had a story, but there are definitely some triumphs here in the life of the young adults and those serving the church. Because like I said, we've been moving right along, especially in the 7th, just shout out to team because they really haven't missed a beat. We've been having our virtual worship services. We've been connecting, coming together to film content to make sure that the needs of the 7th district are met. So I'm so proud to be in the 7th.
Going with Jamaisha, the best thing we can do for our young adults to make sure that we're reaching them is simply just ask. I think a lot of times we think that what we know or what we've seen work is the best, not realizing that there are 3, 4, or how many ever other ways to do these things. And what we do at work is person-centered. So with person-centered planning, that's what we do. We meet the needs of each student because we know that each student's needs are different. Student A is going to look a lot different than student C. Same with our churches, our young adults. This church here, the needs are going to look a lot different than this church here. So that's why we sit there, we collaborate, like you mentioned. Let's ask, hey, what are you doing? How is that working for you? Have you ever thought about doing it this way? We've seen this work. Let's collaborate. Let's ask what works best for you. What did you see that didn't work so well? And how can we do this to make this best for us? And again, with being person-centered, we know that it's going to look different. We're going to have to make some small variations. But if we're asking, if we're truly putting in that work, then we can meet the needs of everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that they both said. I feel like the young adult, us as a generation, we're just a valuable untapped resource. And you got to use it. I feel like I don't see a lot of people taking advantage of it. Like, we're right in the middle of the 2 generations. And so we can provide some really great feedback about, hey, what are millennials doing? What is this generation doing? Like, we're in a perfect position. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to continue to give feedback in sectors like this. So it's important, really important.
Right. And so in listening to what you all said is that we're a resource. We have information, we have talents, we have skills that can not only continue to help the church, but continue to elevate the church as well. And so it's almost like, don't try and guess what I like when you can ask what I like. Don't try and create programming that you think I'm going to be interested in when you can simply stop me, text me, call me, what Jamaisha said, or email me if that's what you choose to do. Zoom in the virtual world, FaceTime, there's so many ways to actually communicate and to kind of keep individuals in kind of the loop. I feel like it's kind of the same thing with with YPDs as well, and our younger youth. Like, when we're creating programming, let's not create programming and guess, wondering whether they're liking. We can literally ask them, what are y'all doing now? What are you all kind of in now? It's kind of the same thing for young adults. And going back to your point that we are a resource and we have things that we can use that can benefit us. And so I guess as we slowly start to wrap up this conversation and learning so much from each other, what do you feel like has been something that you learned that you feel like you can take back into like your churches when you go back to in-person church? What is something that you learned during the virtual spaces that we've been in via church, whether it be work, professional world? What has been something that you learned that you can kind of take back to benefit your church families?
I'd say one thing that we can take is just, my favorite word, to be honest, is boundaries. I think boundaries are super important. And with COVID-19, the number one boundary, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. And the 6 feet apart rule, that really stands out to me because, you know, in churches, we have to realize that we're dealing with a wide variety of people. We don't know everyone's backgrounds. We don't know what people are dealing with at home. We don't sometimes know if people even have a home. And so I would say, you know, being respectful of boundaries at church, in the Black church specifically, we love to hug. We love to, you know, be there. And as great as that is, sometimes it's not so great for people. And I want to like bring back to churches, just hope churches will just think about it. You don't have to do it. Just think about it for a second. Like, respect those boundaries. If someone feels like they don't want, you know, those 3 feet, if they would like to remain that 6 feet, or if they don't want to hug you, if they don't want to give you that, you know, that church hug, that church kiss, let that be okay. Let's not think that, you know, this person is mean or has an attitude, but let's just respect their boundaries, because just like at COVID-19, we don't know what people are dealing with now that they're, you know, pretty much confined to their houses. So if you go back to churches, just be mindful of what others may be dealing with at home, and just don't take something so personally.
Well, for me, I feel like what I learned during quarantine was just having empathy. I know as caring professionals, lots of times we have compassion fatigue. And I felt myself having compassion fatigue, meaning I'm losing my caring for someone else. And so just being able to have empathy for that person, for the people around me. Everything is going on during quarantine. People are losing their jobs, people are losing their lives. It's just all types of new normals happening within our society. And so just empathy. And it makes you, those people that, like she said, don't necessarily want to wear the mask, it still adds the empathy piece to me as well. Like, you have to be aware and caring of the people around you. And so I feel like that's a wonderful message that we should share within the churches, to remind people, not sympathy, but empathy.
Yeah. One thing I've learned, and I hope that during this time more people practice, is just a self-care routine that is nourishing and unique to their styling. I hope that others research and, you know, because so many people have been ill, but they're still pushing themselves for years to serve in the church. And we've seen now that a virtual space can be created. I know for centuries, the young adults have been pushing for, not centuries, but, you know, for a very long time, we've been encouraging our churches to implement a virtual space, have taped messages. And so now we see that it can be done. And, you know, whether we go back into our churches in a month or 2 or 6 months, I hope that we continue to engage in a virtual space with our members, virtual Bible studies where we can see each other's face, because I think, you know, for a few years from now, we'll still be practicing these precautionary measures of COVID. But just to include this in our church worship, you know, it can be done. Nothing can take away from the Charleston clap on a Sunday morning. Oh, Jesus, the euphoria, right? I know. But we see that it can happen. It can happen. It only took COVID to motivate us to get it done.
Yeah, and I think just overall, just to kind of bring everything home and put it in a tight bow, is just remember that we're all still in different places in our lives. We're all still in different places with how the impact that COVID-19 has had on us. And so respecting where people are in their journey. So when we get back to church, like, you know, if somebody doesn't want to fist bump you, like, don't take it personal. You know, if somebody doesn't want to air hug you, don't take it personal. You never know what that person may be dealing with on the back end, you know, what they may be dealing with at their home, that they may not feel fully safe to engage and those type of actions like with you. You know, if there are some people who, when we come back to church, that want to still remain virtual services, you know, and want to still watch from home, don't judge them for that. Try and understand where they're coming from. I think it also goes back to something Kara mentioned earlier, that, you know, we have now seen that the virtual space can be created. And so even when we go back to in-person church, if we have the capability to continue doing it, create the virtual space in addition to the in-person space. That way you're serving more and more people that may not be able to come back, that may not be ready to come back. So I thank you all for your perspectives. I thank you all for your insight. So glad to be in this field with all of you all. You all are great. You all are talented. So as I wrap it all up, thank you all for hanging out with me, Jamaisha, Kara, and Shatia. We're all so excited to see what emerging adults are going to continue to do for the AME Church and for this world. So this ends this segment of Couch Conversations, and we will see you next time. Thank y'all.